Welcome everyone to Breaking Down Barriers to Learning, Blended Learning 2.0. The presenters today will be myself, Travis Averett, Dr. Lynn Burks, and Dean Holik. Today we're going to be talking about blended learning, operationalizing a large system-wide launch, and creating high-impact practices that you can change how your university brings together multiple modalities. We'll be looking at how we leverage classroom technology to bring two different modalities together, an on-site and an online student groups, and how we created a batch automation process to make this a reality at our university. To kick things off, I'm going to pass the baton over to Dr. Lynn Burks.
Thanks, Travis. So with the new decade upon us, all of us will experience an increase in demand for access to flexible educational experiences. But those same students that come to us for access to flexible experiences will also want personalized experiences and engaging experiences. So this allowed us to start our journey at DeVry University in early 2019. What if we could take our blended learning model and even blend it further, otherwise known blending of blended? What if we could rethink those classrooms that we break down almost all barriers to learning? We could take the best of on-site education, face-to-face education, and meld that with the best of online education, allowing us to rethink completely what our classrooms look like, almost as modality neutral. Really fostering us to think about how we plan for that, how we get our faculty to master a modality neutral learning experience, how we get them to apply their learning, and at the end of the day, not only allow flexibility for our students, but elevate our level of teaching. And so a couple of key practices got us to that point. First and foremost, it's very important that you create a cross-functional power team. This is a power team that includes stakeholders from across the institution. You're bringing in your IT leadership, you're bringing in your academic technologists, you're bringing in your faculty and your faculty leadership, and you're creating a power team. This power team also has a growth mindset where they believe in possibilities. They're true transformers that can really think about what classrooms could look like. And as you build your cross-functional team, we also found it very, very helpful then to really look deeply at how we prepare faculty for this flexible experience. And so we found ourselves building a toolkit that could really allow faculty to master what these modality neutral or mixed modality classrooms look like. Going back to our tried and true, where our faculty always lead our faculty through transformation. We're also going to talk to you a little bit about lesson planning, which isn't typical for higher ed. And then we're also going to talk to you about some impactful practices that help guided us through this journey.
Let me talk a little bit about that power team as well, because one of the really important takeaways that we found from that is to usually you think your power team, your best, your highest in the totem pole, right? And that's exactly not the direction to go, right? That power team should really be in the field, in the wings of all of this too, and not just the, hey, I raised my hand, I volunteer team. You have to hand select these team members to create content for their peers. That's a really big takeaway we found.
Yeah, I mean, and Travis, to your point too, you can't innovate from the top down. And you have to make sure you engage stakeholders that understand the environment. And that was also really important. So excellent point. So the toolkit. And so what we did was we wanted to create a training that would mimic a student experience that our faculty would be teaching in. And so our training was a mixed modality training. We toggled between synchronous and asynchronous. And we also had faculty in front of us and faculty coming in remotely, so they would be comfortable with that environment. But Also, a couple other things I want to share with you. First and foremost, you need to set expectations. Those expectations need to be simple. They need to be clear. Because as your classrooms become more flexible, you also have to make sure that you meet those key expectations. Some of you are attendance-bearing institutions. There's policy and compliance issues that need to also adhere to. So it's very important those expectations are up front and center. You then have key planning tools, and you have a checklist. We're big on checklists. Simple little things to make sure that you've addressed before you teach in this experience. We also have web conferencing tools. We want to make sure faculty leverage all the bells and whistles of the web conferencing tools. And that last but not least, the space for them to share. I've seen a lot of teaching and learning centers. They're one way. Apply your learnings. Reflect mastery. What do your integration notes look like? You submit your planning document. Have your peers review that. Provide feedback so you've met all those expectations. And last, this is a journey for us at DeVry University, that as faculty teach session over session, they're asked to reflect upon their experiences and how would they alter their experiences as they continue to evolve in this mixed modality. So what I want to show you right now is a very, very simple matrix. Very simple. Some of you have 6-week classes, 8-week classes, 15-week classes, whatever it may be. This is a very simple tool to think about what's asynchronous, what's synchronous, what's student-led, what's faculty-led. And so very, very simple rethinking, reimagining your modules or your weeks. What do I want to accomplish that week? What do I want my students to do independently? And what do I want them to do before they come into what we call the highlight of our week, our live lesson? The part of the week where our on-site students and our remote students join together for a collaborative learning lesson. And then lastly, what are you going to do post-class? Assessment. What do you want them to do as you connect your weeks to create a fluid experience? And so what I want to talk to you about then is the live lesson. And so this is a sample agenda of what a 3+ hour live lesson could look like. And you have it broken down into 15 to 30-minute segments. An introduction, getting, asking if there's any questions, teeing up the lesson. And then you have a mini lecturette, followed up by an active learning experience. This is where you have your on-site students and your online students engaging together in a learning activity. Pending the length of your lesson, you have to make sure you have a break. You may also want to think about multiple breaks. You have to be very cognizant of your students. Yes, faculty, your presence, but also their presence. Are you seeing them kind of drift off? You need to bring them back, have a break, and then have them come back. You have another mini lecturette. And lastly, you have another active learning, and then a wrap up. This is what we did, last reflections, and then getting them ready for the next week and or the next module.
And thanks, Lynn. And one of the key things here is really that active learning piece. And one of the best ways to do that is to leverage some of the technologies that are widely available. There's hundreds of these out there. And so you might create video resources that, hey, maybe before the class even comes, I've created some mini lecturettes that the students can partake and watch and experience before they even come to that live lesson and that live experience, so we can do more engaging activities throughout that live experience. And so right now we're using a web conferencing solution, which we pretty much all do to do those kind of connections, right? So even out of the gate, a lot of them have whiteboarding, interactive whiteboarding. They have polling and built right into them that you can leverage as well. Breakout rooms are another fantastic one where you can start to break down the larger class groups into smaller peer groups that have engaging interactions. They also start to build out that students' peer network of fellow students as well, So then they can have more long-term relationships, not only in your class, but the next class, and even after they complete their degree at your particular university. Be sure to leverage different engagement technologies. Kahoot, Jamboarder has some fantastic examples as well, just to create interaction inside of those live lesson experiences. Don't forget the age-old Office 365, the Google suite of tools as well. You can get in there, collaboratively create content, create something that's bigger whole than the sum of the parts, right? So everyone can be working in something collaboratively throughout that experience. Do some demos in there. So whether it's you, the faculty, or the students, or perhaps a guest speaker coming in to demo creating something in the Adobe Creative Suite, or building a circuit design, or doing something else that is very applicable to your particular student audience.
Travis, too, it's really important low tech is fine. I mean, you can significantly engage your student community using low tech strategies, and start simple. As you start this mixed modality model for your institution, start simple and then add power workshops as you move through the process. That also allows faculty to gain confidence and pick tools that work for their disciplines and also work for their comfort level.
Yep, and that's extremely important, is to not shoot for the moon out of the gate. That's not what NASA did, man. They went up into orbit a little bit, and then they went a little bit further, and then they went all the way, right? And same thing with our faculty and the students as well. It's going to be a new experience for those students to use some of these different technologies. So start with something simple and have your faculty build out that approach over time. One thing that we've done actually is created multiple toolkits. So we have the base foundational toolkit to get this faculty functional and using this cross-modality approach. But then we have additional ones. We have a whole Center for Teaching Excellence to help guide the faculty in the use of these tools as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as you start to leverage these tools, you really have to be mindful of the multiple audiences. Typically, you either in the past had the on-site group or that virtual attendee, and then they don't even mix. But now you also have this asynchronous, this recording viewer attendee as well that's coming to partake in this experience, whether it's that on-site or the online. Maybe they're rewatching the session to gain further insights, or maybe they missed the session. So that recorded viewer is very important as well, and it's a piece of the puzzle that can often be forgotten about.
Yeah, and one of the sharing activities that we do with our faculty is, as uncomfortable as it is, we have them post their first live lesson and then put them into a peer review situation where they're paired up and they're reviewing each other's recordings. And that's the best way. I remember the first time I launched this modality. You do tend to forget the fact that a significant number of your students are going to watch your recording because you are creating a learning artifact. So you have to make sure you're paying it. It's very easy to pay attention to the students you have in front of you. You have to make sure you're engaging the folks online. And then you have to shout out to those that are watching the recording as well, because you'll have a significant amount of students that will attend your lessons, but also will watch the recording later.
Yep. And, your students are watching those recordings. The students are attending that live experience as well. Poll your students. See what they're thinking, what they're feeling, how it's connecting with them or not connecting with those students as well. So you can continue to build out your tool set to best engage the students and help you as a faculty member as well. Ask your peers, the peer network that you formed in that toolkit. Reach out to those, as Lynn mentioned as well. Watch your own recordings. Give yourself some 360 feedback. How did you hear? How did you sound? How did you look throughout the experiences? Was the content clear? Was it engaging throughout the experience? So, switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the classroom technology that we use to bring that on-site and online modalities together to create this experience. We start out very simply. So we did not shoot for oh my gosh, we have to spend $200,000 per single individual classroom. Where on earth are we going to get the budget for that, right? We started with something very simple. We had a webcam. mounted on a tripod in our classrooms with the faculty USB connected to their laptops or the podium computer to present. We leveraged Yeti microphones that were about $100 that we placed inside the classroom. And yes, they're condensing microphones, but they worked fairly surprisingly well inside the classrooms. There was an opportunity to have feedback, absolutely, but it got us started somewhere, got us testing, got us experimenting with that smaller power team that we had put in place as well to test out some of these different technologies. We leveraged different annotation tools as well, whether it was a whiteboard mounted on the wall, iPad displays, touchscreen devices, and all those kind of things to kind of feel our way for the first couple sessions until we were at a point where we had a more finite solution and kind of identify some of the struggle points. We didn't require IT to come in or a third-party vendor to come in and install ceiling-mounted microphones and speaker systems and have Cisco come in and install all their equipment. We kept it very simple. And even our final solution was very simple as well. It's all USB devices. And so we have an OWL 360. You can see right here in the top left corner of the podium. So this is a 360 microphone array and a 360 camera mounted on top of that with active speaker tracking for the camera and microphones as well. And so that camera can pan all around the room, pick up the students inside of the classroom, pick up the faculty in the front of the classroom wherever they're at, and transmit that to that live lesson experience and the recording experience. This is actually very effective for us in our classroom environments. The next piece of the technology was we replaced the displays. All of their displays went to a Helion annotation device. Right on it, the faculty does all their annotation. And so rather than going up to the whiteboard, which can and cannot come across sometimes on a webcam and then presented through a WebEx experience or a web conferencing experience more so. And so this projected everything through the classroom projector, and then it was also recorded by the web conferencing solution. And so it gave annotation to that on-site group and the online group and the recording group. So it created that great mesh for everyone to have that great experience.
Exactly, Travis. And we like the tracking was really important because we wanted, if a student was saying something in class, we wanted the remote learners to be able to track audio and video at the same time. So it's a seamless management experience for faculty. And then some faculty, because they lost their whiteboards, they really wanted annotation. But I'll note, we still keep it pretty open. While most of our classrooms have these technologies, we also have a bring your own device, because at the end of the day, some of this can be done. There's some really cool things you can do on your phones. Most of our students have phones. You should have almost a cafeteria-like selection of tools that faculty can come and check out as you continue to grow this modality. And we learned. We didn't go ahead and invest millions of dollars up front. We learned, we solicited feedback, and we very, very thoughtfully came to the conclusion of some of these elements of our mixed modality classrooms.
Yep, we ended up rolling this out to about 400 to 500 course sections per session. So it's a fairly wide rollout for us. And most of our on-site classes now have that online component all linked together through those processes, and most primarily through these technologies that you see here as well. So I want to change gears a little bit and talk about the implementation strategy that we did from the back end of this and pass the ball over to Dean Holik.
Thanks, Travis. So now that we have this new modality, from an IT perspective, what do we need to do so that it's sustainable and removes the need for manual management of how this new modality is going to interact within our Canvas LMS system? So I'm going to speak briefly about IT automation, cross-listing, and batch file testing. So to begin with, when the new modality was put on the table, and we went through academically the process of implementing this, we didn't have the resources in IT to implement the technology changes that we needed to do. We did them a few months later, but as everybody is aware, resources are resources, and people can only work so many hours in a day. So to start off this process, we manually managed the on-live courses, which remember is a combination of an online course and an on-site course cross-listed together. There were hundreds of these courses that had to be manually cross-listed every session. And at DeVry, a session, just so you know, is 8 weeks long. So to do this manually, we were dropping batch files within the Canvas LMS to cross-list all of these courses. Obviously, courses don't stay the same after they're created. There are changes. Some courses get dropped, some get moved. There are all types of different scenarios which can happen to the state of a course after it's been cross-listed, but prior to it actually starting as its live course within the session that it's assigned. We were having to manage all of these changes manually. And all of this extra work was taking around 20 to 25 hours of a single person's time every 8 weeks just to keep up with the flow of initially setting it up and then making the changes needed into the first week or two, generally at the start of a session, because changes will still occur within week 1. It significantly tails off in week 2. Those are more rare. So what did we need to do from a technology perspective to automate this? Now, we've cross-listed courses before at DeVry, but it was on an extremely small scale, and those were generally done via ad hoc requests. There is a small pocket of technology that uses them, but generally we only did them when it was requested by an academic or a professor. Hey, could you cross-list these courses together? So we just handled those manually. So when we initially configured our integration between our student information system, which is Banner, and our Canvas LMS system, cross-listing wasn't part of the equation at that time. But now with this new modality, it needed to be part of the equation so that it would work for us, and we could again remove all the manual hours that somebody was doing to handle this behind the scenes so that faculty and students had a good experience in the LMS when taking one of these online courses. So to do that, we needed to add an additional file type to our batch file integration for cross-listing. There's a snippet for it on the right-hand side of the slide in the little yellow Post-it note, if you're interested. But this allowed us to take the activity that was already occurring in Banner, because you can cross-list courses in Banner, and replicate that so we're not doing double the work in the Canvas LMS system. I initially, when we started moving down this path of automation for this, wrote a requirements list. It was a little easier for me at the time, only because we'd had to do this for a couple of sessions manually, so all those little pain points were well exposed by the manual process we've been doing. But I wrote a requirements list of expectations of what the tool will do and what behavior of a particular course in Banner will happen in the Canvas system. Because remember, again, we're connecting an on-site course with a fully online course and a cross-list. So what would happen if the on-site course got canceled prior to start? How did I want that to behave? Or the reverse of that, what happens if the online course gets canceled for any reason? There's always a number of changes that occur in a couple of weeks prior to the start of session into the first week of a session. Faculty are changed around, students are maybe moved around to even out enrollments, things of that nature. We did accommodate for this within the automation of cross-listing when we did this project and set it all out. So again, it's all documented. I did a pre-documentation, and then that's malleable as we moved through the actual coding and testing process of adding this to our existing batch file integration. And I can't emphasize the testing part enough for this conversation, because all of those little potential scenarios that can happen to you at your institution, you need to test those, because But prior to implementation, if they're not fully tested and they don't behave the way you expect them to behave, it can cause problems down the road. And now we're back to having to, depending on how your organization handles these types of issues, handle a lot of tickets, handle a lot of email requests, whatever the case may be. But it's always best to test everything. Test it twice and document it. Take screenshots, write it down what you did, give it a pass or fail score if necessary, so that even later, if something happens, maybe it got overlooked, because things get overlooked, it's just the way it happens, you could go back to prior documentation and see where either you missed a step or you did a step and it worked before, and now it sends you down a different path of investigation for trying to figure out, well, why isn't it not working now? Our integration between the two systems runs every 2 hours, which is always a point to kind of keep in the frontmost of your mind, is how often do you want the changes to occur? When somebody does something in Banner, how quickly do your faculty and students want to see that occur within your LMS, or if you had a different system than Banner? But again, documentation and testing and having a nice solid set of requirements at the very beginning prior to folding in the rest of the technology team needed to make this process happen is the best and easiest way to go.
So to tie this all up with some key takeaways, the importance of a collaborative, cross-functional power team. Be very intentional about who's on that power team and make sure that you have stakeholders and representation from your entire institution, because you really are rethinking your entire educational experience. Do not be afraid to set up expectations and mastery for your faculty. And if you create faculty being able to work with faculty and share their experiences, you'll be able to do that. And simple, simple, simple. Keep it simple. Dean talked about testing. Even as we started small, we would hold, for the first week of our session, all hands on deck, early morning war rooms, calls to the help desk, feedback from faculty, anything we heard from students. We didn't let any stone unturned the first couple sessions that we rolled this out. And then lastly, the living learning experience that Travis and Dean are going to talk about.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is this isn't a, man, once we roll this out, once the faculty have an ideology of this, this is the end-all, be-all. There's our trials and tribulations to be had. There's going to be fantastic highs, and there's going to be some lows, especially as faculty first transition to this and the students first transition to this learning modality of bringing all that together. It's going to be a little bit of a bumpy road, and as long as you kind of keep it simple to start off with and have those faculty build out their skill set as they continue to evolve and teach additional sessions, this will grow and evolve and adapt to really best meet the needs of the faculty and the students.
Yes. Everything new is scary at the beginning. However, we can tell you after having to manage this now for a year, or the better part of a year, that it has been well worth it.
And our journey started in 2019. And what we learned over the last year is how this really is about academic continuity. We are able to pivot within 3 days because of COVID, because of the model that we have worked so hard. And I do believe that our organization is stronger because of this cross-functional collaborative team between all of our stakeholders. And so this you not only are going to be able to enhance the experience, increase access, increase flexibility, this really is part of a continuity plan as well, and allows institutions to continue regardless of the environment that is happening externally.
So just as closing, wanted to share our personal email addresses with you as well. If you have any questions for any of our segments, feel free to reach out to either Dean, Lynn, or myself, and we'll be happy to answer any additional questions you may have.